projected to
This
have
is a
that
test
was
of the City of Palatka
by the
audio
end of the
system.
You're ready to strike. No, you're right on time.
You did it just right.
And, am I needed?
Absolutely.
You're always needed. You're always needed.
You're right here.
You're waiting.
Since I'm old.
Nice try.
You ready?
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, the time is 4 o'clock and we will go ahead and call this meeting to order. Charter Review Committee Special Call Meeting to the members, Annie Davis, Jeremy Davis, Tom Dolan, Teresa Jackson, Allegra Kitchens, James Norwood, Tiffany Parker Flanders, Leanne Ryan, Matt Schuler, Audrey Wise, and Annie Swetlick, alternate. You're hereby notified that the special call meeting of the Palatka Charter Review Committee is hereby called to be held on November 20th, 2024 at 4 p.m. at City Hall Annex 205 North 2nd Street, Palatka, Florida 32177. The purpose of this meeting is to review the city's charter. Please govern yourselves accordingly. Terrell Hill, Chair, Sonny Krantz, City Clerk. Roll call, please.
Annie Davis. Here. Jeremy Davis is not present for the record. Thomas Dolan.
Present.
Teresa Jackson.
Present.
Allegra Kitchens.
Present.
James Norwood.
Here.
Tiffany Parker Flanders. Here. Lee Rion is not present for the record. Matt Schuler.
Here.
Audrey Wise.
Present.
Terrell Hill.
Here.
And then Annie Svetlick,
Here.
present as an alternate. You do have a form, sir.
Now we're opening the floor up to general public comment. Public comments will be limited to 3 minutes. No action will be taken on topics of discussion. Seeing no one here, we will close public comment at this time. We'll move into item 2 on the agenda, which is our regular business recommendations regarding Charter Article 2.
Third, did you want to entertain a motion to approve the minutes?
I'm sorry. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion on the floor. A second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries unanimously. Moving on to item.
Chair, I have some corrections for the minutes.
Go ahead, and we'll rescind the motion. We'll add them as, we'll do another motion to add the corrections. Go ahead.
to rescind the motion.
We won't have to, we're fine. We'll do it as an additional motion.
On the minutes, on the page where it states, Ms. Wise said her landlord decided she had to move. That's an incorrect statement. It should be an example of if someone had a landlord that stated.
Any other correction?
That was only correction.
Is that a motion for corrections to the minutes?
I move that we accept the amendment to the motion.
Okay. A second, can we use that as just a motion to add corrections to the minutes?
I move to add corrections to the minutes.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor, is there a second?
Second.
Any further in readiness? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to item 2, the agenda regular business recommendations regarding Charter Article 2, City Commission. First subset, small I, is subcommittee comments. Are there any comments from the subcommittee? I've got one comment as it relates to the last subcommittee that we were on. It was extremely difficult. I think Ms. Krantz made several attempts to try to get everybody together. That subcommittee would be. And so it's just critical for us as we do it. And we know we've had a lot of different things that have happened over the last few months, but it's critical for us to really, there's going to be some level of sacrifices sometimes, and some things that we have in place when we move forward. as we start to move through what some items that may become, more hot button topics. But I think we've got to, continually make best efforts. And I know everybody's busy and it's hard to get people together. It's a labor of love for us to get everybody here today. And I think it's appreciated that, sacrifices were made. And further comments are always needed as to what's the best time and the best day. But the subcommittee was unable to meet because we couldn't get the people together. And I think we just gotta just keep consciously just trying to make sure we just keep that in the back of our minds that, that stuff becomes critical the further we get along in this process.
Sure.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
And along with those comments, one of the things that I think that probably need to happen, should happen, is that we try and schedule those meetings in this particular.
Yeah.
The way, and then if changes takes place, then it just, with that subcommittee would, come together and come up with the alternate date if they need it.
Mr. Chair.
Good point.
I had the time down, I had the place down, I had the wrong date. So I didn't even know we were meeting till I got somebody, I think Sunday, somebody said, where are you? And I said, what are you talking about? So Mr. Norwood's been sitting here for 30 minutes and nobody's present. I had the wrong, I wrote it on the wrong day in my calendar. So it'd be nice to have a little reminder maybe, or email or something the day before.
And so Ms. Krantz has an assistant who's been making calls out. If you guys got calls, just trying to make sure that bodies are there. And so they're checking in.
Yeah, this time is great, yeah.
Chair, is that an option? I guess what legal counsel will be able to answer, if it's at all possible, a physical meet considering a Zoom meeting or something like that, is that a feasibility? And fact finding for such as a subcommittee, like this situation, is that something that's allowable?
You can set up your own Zoom.
A Zoom in case, physically you can't be a place, but maybe, you can do Zoom. If that could be an option, you could maybe exercise too.
For the record, Mr. Chair, I have no way to do Zoom with speaking or camera. So I'd be here in person, but I have no particular problem with Zoom otherwise for other people.
You can do it with your phone.
My phone is not hooked up to anything, sir.
Cell phone or anything. You can just dial into a number and do Zoom.
I have no camera option. I have no speech option. I can't do it. I'm sorry.
So what Zoom says, just so that you understand Zoom. So Zoom has an option for you just to dial in from a landline. So like when we do court or whatever, you can dial in and it'll just put your phone number up there.
Well, that I can do.
Yeah, you can
Okay, I can do that.
It'll be like
Okay.
like a party line back in the day.
Okay, I can do that, but I'll be present in person, but I can do that if need be. So thank you.
Just for clarification purposes, we had at the last meeting, the creation of a third subcommittee to identify the qualifications other than residency. Is that the subcommittee that we're speaking about now?
Right.
Just to clarify.
And,
Thank you.
and we had given the city manager, a directive to contact the League of Cities to find out how other cities were handling that portion of the charter as well. And unfortunately,
Okay, I'll pick up the slack on that. Can you repeat that, Mr. Norwood? Contact the Florida League of Cities for what exactly?
to find out how other cities was handling the qualifications to run for city commission, how they verify the qualifications to run for city commission and the qualifications to maintain your seat as well.
Any other comments?
Yes, and if this is appropriate at this time, I did take a look at some other city charters. In Green Code, for example, I looked at theirs because they did have a similar requirement that 1 year prior to being eligible or qualified to run for office, that you are a resident. And then, and I believe, and I have to read it, I have it on my screen, but I'll find it, but for the sake of getting to the details of it, that there was a stipulation for if any information came about, even after that person was elected and or sworn in, that you have room to address it at that point and remove them from office. So this
Mr. Chair, let me add one other thing to what she just said as well. We know even in the oath, when they're giving the oath, the question is asked, are you qualified? You know, to be sworn into this office, and all of that should be a part of. It should be clear enough about residency and any other qualifications that the individual has to have.
Any other comments? Seeing none, we'll close subcommittee comments at this time and move on to fact-finding subcommittee, which is what we just discussed. At this point, there's no report as it relates to the subcommittee for Ms. Ryan, Ms. Jackson, me, and Ms. Sweatley. Are there any comments or from anyone who's on the subcommittee at this point? Seeing none, we'll move forward. Is it the pleasure of the committee at this time for us to carry that assignment forward for our next meeting, or do we need to just continue to move?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Ms. Wise. I think it's something that needs to be, investigated. Whichever way the subcommittee would like to handle it, whether it's Zoom or whatever. I think that is a requirement that I think is necessary to clear up any gray areas or, any question about qualifications. I think that should be pursued,
I
in my
agree.
opinion.
Mr. Chair, I think one piece that we probably need to finish up with is verify, how do we verification
Correct.
of qualifications?
That's
correct.
That needs to be cleared up.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll entertain a motion to table the fact-finding committee's report until the next meeting and add it to the next agenda.
So move.
Second by Commissioner Norwood. Is there any further discussion on the motion?
Question.
I have a question. Are we now gonna try to set up a date after the meeting?
Right, and we'll have to include Ms. Ryan in that as well. But we can, so immediately after the meeting, can we just get with Ms. Krantz and try to calendar something with the three that are present? So there's motion on the floor, second. There's any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye. Opposed, motion carries unanimously. Moving on to item B, 2B of the agenda. Continuation of discussion on Article 2, Section 23 through 28, not limited to, but including discussions on Section 23. Discussion on majority constitutes quorum. You want to go ahead and pull up the charter?
While we wait, I guess it's my subject.
Yeah.
One, and I think it goes along with this as well, while we wait. You know, I know that we had Zoom come in and we were Zooming during the pandemic and all, and pandemic's over with. And one of the things that I do believe that the citizens has a right to, and to confront, and when I say confront, bring their issues to the commission. And I think the commission needs to be present, you know, when those concerns are being brought, rather than, well, you know, I'm gonna sit this one out. And that kind of thing. So, and I've been looking for it in the charter, but I don't see anything in the charter to address that as well. Because most citizens, when they do come, they're looking into,
It's by ordinance.
it's ordinance.
By ordinance.
Or
Okay.
emergency declaration from the governor, which has since been rescinded.
That's my point. And once that emergency declaration has been rescinded, then we need to rescind the opportunity, especially for the commission, to have meetings to attend meetings by Zoom.
I agree with, former Commissioner Norwood. I've watched the commission meetings since the pandemic. It looks like it's being abused with commissioners calling in a swimming pool in the Bahamas and all the yelling and screaming and laughing going on. You can't hear what they say. Seriously, they won't give a vote and the vote's already happened 5 minutes earlier. It's very disrupting. And I think it could be addressed under section 23, because this has to do with compelling the attendance of absent members. So perhaps we could deal with it under section 23.
But that's the reason I brought it up at this time, because I think that this is where it not.
If there's no emergency, they need to be there in person. If they can't be there in person, then so be it.
Let's. Comments are duly noted, and I guarantee you in 2 seconds, we're gonna get to the point where you can comment as it relates to that particular piece of it. No, I don't even think it's a cart before the horse. I just think it's a big cart.
It is.
So. Section 23, I can even read this.
No, I can read it here.
Majority constitutes quorum, number for adjournment, compelling attendance of members, vote required for adoption of ordinances, resolutions, entrance on journal. A majority of all members elected to the city commission shall constitute a quorum. But a less number may adjourn from time to time to compel the attendance of absent members in such manner and under such penalties as may be prescribed by the ordinance. The affirmative vote of 3 commissioners shall be necessary to adopt any ordinance or resolution, and the passage of all ordinance and resolutions shall be taken by ayes and nays and entered upon the journal. So it means you can start the meeting out with 3. You can end the meeting with less than 3. Okay, you can end the meeting with less than 3, but you can't take any action unless you have at least 3 votes. And so this ordinance, as you can see, also gets into conversation about absent members, which is what we talked about.
But what
And
does
it
that
says-
sentence actually mean, Jerry?
With part, the second sentence, well, the part that says that, but a less number may adjourn from time to time to compel that the attendance of absent members in such manner and under such penalties as may be prescribed by the ordinance. So we'd have to go to the ordinance to get the other pieces of it, and the ordinance in itself talks about missing consecutive meetings and how a person may be subject to, sanction or removal. And so, can you pull the ordinance up from another?
Regarding removal?
The ordinance for tenants.
Is that what's cited in the parentheses?
And the principle just tells you, that's
the
what
ordinance.
year,
And the laws of Florida.
yeah, it's laws of Florida. Chapter 9875, but we've got an attendance ordinance as well.
While she's pulling that up, Chairman, if I might make a suggestion, it says, resolution shall be passed by taking by ayes and nays, and consistently, the commission for the last 20-odd years has said yes and no a lot of times, so perhaps we could add the word yes and no with the ayes and nays, so that we're okay.
Spell A's with an A-Y-E, so.
Yeah.
How much is-
A yes and a nay.
That's twang.
It's the same thing, yeah.
I have a question while we're pulling this up. So one of the things that's lacking in the current charter is just plain language, and we talked about making it plain language.
Yeah.
The other thing is, where appropriate, we need to consider, I believe, for clarity of stating what we know that currently the commission is 5, the 4 commissioners plus the clerk who vote. Majority is 3 of the 5. Why can't we just say that? I mean, versus, and I know it could be, I get that if the ordinance or something changes later, but it won't, I guess I'm trying to say, do you understand the statement I'm making?
Oh, and I think the reason they use the term majority is used, and this is just my interpretation, and it may be subject to disagreement. is because there is opportunity, you
Oh,
can
yeah.
change the number of people on your commission. So if you,
Okay.
so if we say 3 or 5, then when if the commissioner becomes 7, then then you find yourself with having to adjust it again in other ways. So, but yeah, I mean, it's commonplace for people to speak a majority and supermajority when you start talking of votes. And that's really, it's the common language in government.
I might point out that on the last sentence in section 23, it spells out the affirmative vote of 3 commissioners shall be necessary to adopt any resolution or ordinance. So I think that kind of spells it out in
It
plain
does.
English.
It does, and just Mr. Chair, back to me. And so that's an example of we give bits and pieces here and there, but we're inconsistent. And all I'm saying is if we could be, one of the things I hope that can come out of the committee is clarity, plain language, specifics, without us having to pull up a law where some things are common. That's.
I agree. I definitely agree. Just for Ms. Krantz, can you read the,
Yes, so the ordinance that I believe you're referencing is actually found in section 273 of the code, and it predates 1981. It says the mayor, or in his absence, the mayor pro tem, which is an old reference, shall take the chair at the hour named for any regular, special, or adjourned meeting, and shall call the meeting to order and cause the roll to be called. If there is a quorum present, the commission shall proceed with the usual order of business. Section 273 of the code.
That is.
Yes.
That's
And-
it.
and-
there's an attendance, where's the,
The quorum is.
no, but there's a part that talks about, there's a piece that talks about if you miss 2, I think it was 2 consecutive meetings or without excuse.
Maybe it's in the Florida statutes instead of the city code. What about looking at the Florida law that's quoted down here, chapter 9875, subparagraph 13?
I have a question. If the mayor is not, there, who's then the mayor pro tem?
Which is-
Who's that?
Yeah.
And
Another question.
that's a major issue with the commission right now.
That's right.
So, and historically, Ms. Brown was referred to as Vice Mayor Brown, although there, and y'all can talk to this a little bit better than I can, because when you look at what we have in place, you see references to Mayor Pro Tem in ordinances, but you don't see Vice Mayor in the same way. And many commissions will elect a Vice Mayor or a Mayor Pro Tem, so that in the absence of the mayor, someone is there. Or even in situations where where the mayor's passed the gavel, you go right to someone. In the last couple of meetings, when the gavel's been passed, it's gone to Commissioner Jones. But the commission in itself has not elected a vice chair.
I can speak to Ms. Kitchen's reference for in laws of Florida, chapter 9875. That's actually when the state of Florida adopted our charter or enacted our charter. They made it official in 1922. So that reference to the laws of Florida is simply our charter.
Okay, so there's nothing in this Florida statutes that we know of that talks about attendance.
There might
At least
be. I'm
not,
just-
not on that reference anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
There's a comment from Ann Davis. So as a suggestion for the committee, because, and for me, again, I found it easier than when I went and looked at other cities' charters and saw examples of things which pulled out a lot of what we're lacking, some things that we do differently, we can compare, that I would like to suggest to the committee after this and for the next meeting to go look at other charters. And something that's very confusing for me, but again, I'm speaking for myself, is when we go look at this and we talk about these pieces and parts in the way that we're doing it, I feel like we're starting from, and at some point, we gotta compare what we have to where we wanna get to, right? So, Ms. Kitchens, I see your frown.
No, I thought this is what we're doing, sorry.
No, the point I'm trying to make is we're using this as the first guide with this archaic language that can be really confusing. And then we're saying, oh, let's see what the statute says. And then we're trying to compare it. And again, for me and my mindset, and as a layman, to see where we're trying to go, and where we may have some gaps and fill them in, I'm just suggesting that that may be an opportunity for the committee to go out and look at some other things, see maybe where we're trying to get to and how we need to get there.
Mr. Chairman.
Before we get there, any comments on Ms. Davis's recommendation? Suggestion?
What's exactly your recommendation?
That the committee looks at other city charters to, one, get a feel of what's out there. And I looked at several plain language charters that have been updated. And it brought a lot of clarity to me and suggestions that I would like to make as a member of this committee that I would not otherwise have thought of had I not done additional research outside of this document. That's the point I'm trying to make.
I agree.
That's all.
The reason I wanted to check the code and the Florida statutes, but so that we could add the wording that might be referenced in this and make it more readable. Where it says compel the attendance, how do we compel the attendance? And then a couple of other things, you know, it says something about penalties or something, we don't know what that is. So I was hoping that the city code, which it didn't say anything really, would reference that, or that the Florida statute would, and then we could put that wording into into our code. But neither one of them basically told us anything. The only penalty code we have in our city code, I think is chapter 10. It has to do with other stuff. So I don't know. Yeah, we need some more clarity on this.
Sure. We, if there's no ordinance that this refers to, is that just common language that was added back then? That if there were ordinances to be added, because it doesn't appear that there is an ordinance that has any teeth backing up this.
And that's what I was looking for, I was trying to get to the ordinance which talks about the members then present. I read the one that says that members can appear virtually if you have a quorum present. And so, and I was trying to see if I can find it right quick.
You mean a quorum present live?
So you have to have a physical, so in order for us to have a meeting, in order for a person to be able to attend virtually,
Yeah,
you have to have a quorum present inside of the commission room.
okay.
So
And that's what I was trying to find that ordinance right quick.
So that would have come out probably
It's
after
been
COVID.
subsequent, it was there before
It
COVID,
was?
yes, and because. And I'm just trying to see exactly when it was.
Is that part of the new hire packet or something? For the
No,
commissioner?
I know, well,
Because
I
we
was
need
commissions, if you missed the meeting, you just missed the meeting.
Right.
There were no opportunities to zoom in.
And that's the way it should be.
You
You need to be present at the meeting.
And
That's the job.
I guess I won't be able to find it on the fly, but I know, but particularly during COVID, there was an executive order, which
Right.
said you had to have a quorum present, but you have a lot of communities, even to this day, but even subsequent to COVID, we continue to use the same thing, and I want to say it was in place before. And I'm pretty sure, but I can't find it, just trying to find it quickly. But again, neither here nor there. The reality of it is this: at this time, the way the commission operates is you can appear virtually if there is a quorum present in City Hall.
Yeah.
We have the ability within this charter, within this charter committee, to be able to say that, virtual appearances
Yeah.
will only be allowed during state of emergencies or emergency situations, and that's what we chose to do.
We're laughing because we're finding all the same research at the same time. That was an attorney general opinion that was issued by Ashley Moody in March of 2020, so on the heels of
COVID. Right.
And it does state that you do have to have a quorum present in person. And there's exceptions, but it's an AGO opinion.
Once it was suspended,
If
all that should have been suspended.
But it continued on even after the state of emergency.
That's why I said it was abused. I think we need to state that you must, unless it's a national emergency or a state emergency, you must be in person to participate in the meeting.
You get the definitions as well.
Right.
Can we,
we talked about that for staff also. I know, in the past, prior to our fabulous attorney that we have now, when I have watched city commission meetings and the attorney was zooming in, you could tell she was not paying attention to what was going on to the meeting. She had no clue when they would ask her a question, because it's easy to not pay attention when you're not there in person. So if we're gonna my suggestion is if we're going to, do something for the commissioners and say you need to be in person, I feel like we need to discuss that with the staff that needs to be in the meetings also.
I agree 100%.
Let's remember that staff actually does not work for the commission.
Okay,
And I think for us to try to deal with staff in the charter review,
okay,
it's not appropriate.
okay.
Through the chair, I want to make sure I have clarity on what we're saying. The attorney did read the statute that was put in place regarding a quorum and the physical individual being there, and then a person can, zoom in or whatever that is. I am in favor for that flavor to be in the charter, but I don't think on the emergent situation, don't get me wrong. I don't think we need to put ourselves in a box either. Corporate America, I know we're not corporate America, but we need to stop thinking in the age of what it used to be and embrace what's happening around us. I totally understand state of emergency. I get all that. I hear you and I see that. But if you have a commissioner that can't physically be there and you have your quorum and they want to zoom in, to me, I think that is a positive situation. I think we need to be careful with our language, not to put ourselves in a box. Understand guidelines. I get it. I'm all on with that. But we have to be in the now and not necessarily in the past, in the way we do things in government. And this is not the only entity that faces this, because I too have looked at Green Coat and St. Augustine's charter, and they are a little bit more liberal in certain areas, right, wrong, or indifferent, I'm not saying, but I think we need to not put ourselves in a box. That's what I'm saying. Have the language, but understand that it's not so staunch that it cannot be an exception to, is what I would like to put you with.
My main concern, I understand about corporations. This is government. We control the laws, we control people's lives. My concern is that, yes, it might be a bit ludicrous. Someone could be appearing on Zoom, someone could be behind them, holding a gun to their head and forcing them to vote a certain way. This is government that makes the laws, and you all know that sometimes things get really bad. Might not happen in the city of Palatka, but also when a commissioner's on vacation, they have not read the agenda packet. They don't know what's going on. They call in on Zoom, and then they ask a question about what's going on, and it causes pandemonium in the meeting. I've seen the meetings disrupted time and time again by people on vacation or in other places, not even in the state, calling in and voting on something that's already been voted on, wanting to say something about something that's already gone. And the time lapse is almost impossible. And I agree with Ms. Wise. We do need to specify, and I would clarify, if the emergency is declared by the governor of Florida or the United States president, then that's different. Other than that, I think members should be there. If you're on vacation, you don't need to interrupt your vacation by sitting down and studying a 600-page agenda.
Sure. So, and then I'll come around.
Oh, okay.
Okay, no, we'll go, Mr. Dolan, and then we'll go in order.
I agree with Ms. Wise. I mean, I think we're overthinking this, man. My mom is 95 years old, had spent 6 months in New Jersey this year. I wouldn't have been able to do my business if it weren't for Zoom.
Thank you.
Okay, it's not, nobody's holding a gun to my head when I'm in a Zoom meeting, sorry.
You're not government either, so there's a difference.
This point.
I didn't interrupt you.
Well, you did actually, but go ahead.
Miss Kitchen.
Please go, Annie. I'm done.
So this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna respect each other here. And I get it, but let's let everybody talk and go from there, and then we'll go back to comments. I try to be real flexible in what we do, but we gotta make sure that we respect everybody in here and that, you know, that we keep this thing with the level of decorum based upon how people, the reason we're all here is because people respect us. And someone respected us enough to have us here, so if we disagree, let's disagree, but let's keep a certain level of decorum as we go. Stay.
Two things. Number one, this is great discussion, and I hope in the minutes we can obviously capture what we're saying. One thing I want to make sure we set some ground rules for is, again, continuing to revisit what our purpose and role is here. One of the things that's easy to do, and I think we have to make sure we avoid, is that we do not try to govern behavior by a charter, because we can never do that. I think we have to start with the premise that whether it's the city manager or a commissioner or the mayor or whoever this charter speaks to, that we're gonna start from the premise that they have roles and responsibilities that they've agreed to and will be held to. We are trying to define how they operate and anything else that directs how they operate. And so I just want us to keep that. And my second point is, at some point, and again, this me and my logical mind, I'm so grateful to be on a committee with past commissioners and a past mayor. I would like to ask for you guys to consider that with your practical experience and knowledge, that you remember you have several citizens. And what I want to recommend is that we think about categorizing what the things we're talking about. I know I'm saying a lot. So for example, and again, I'm just gonna go back and, because this document's all over the place, because it's so old. So when I think about city commission, there are pieces and parts, but we're kind of talking here and there. For example, there's general powers and duties, there's a composition of qualifications, terms of office, oaths of, prohibitions, things we don't want, organization, selection of officers, the mayor, vice mayor, things like that in categories that don't necessarily exist directly in the document. So that's my comment.
Mr. Mayor.
I just knew you had a comment.
I'm sorry, Chair. First of all, the vacation piece of it is, I worked at the mill during the time that I was a city commissioner. And one of the things that I learned to do is schedule my vacations around different projects that I had at the mill, but also around commission meetings. And not only vacation, but any other thing, anything else that I had. The reason that I did that, because I promised the city citizens that I would be present and will sit there and listen to their concerns. Their concerns was the most important concerns to me. And one of the things that I mean, when we're elected so the citizens would have the opportunity to bring their concerns to us, directly to us. But when we on Zoom for a year after the pandemic is over, and we don't attend, we don't think anything of it. The emergency order has been suspended. And I think that we have an ordinance in place that allows us to do Zoom, which is fine. But I think the charter should be the guidelines for meeting attendance, whether it be in person or in Zoom. But I think one of the things that we probably need, because we can go around this table all day long and be discussing it. We don't put any language out there so that we can actually vote on, so that we can actually put whatever we want to put in this charter review and recommend it back to the commission. We'll be meeting until doomsday.
And I'll say this, I hear everybody's sentiment, and I'll give the example of frustration that I've had as it relates to the attendance piece. I was in a hospital and we had a commission meeting and I just gotten out of the hospital with COVID. And I just been cleared like that day, but we only had 2 people who could be present. And after 10 days in the hospital, I literally walked into, I had to come into City Hall and I really didn't want to come because, you know, although I've been cleared, I really wasn't in a physical position to be here, but I had to come because nobody else could make it in order for us to even be able to conduct business. And so those are the places where it becomes difficult. I do believe that in today's society, we're gonna see more and more virtual appearances in place. And I think we have to be, and while we may have some disdain for the way that it's worked in our city since the inception of COVID, we also have to be conscious of the fact that this committee in itself has had challenges in getting people together. If we have the ability to bring people together virtually, it will allow us to be able to continue to conduct business of the city. The one thing I don't want to do is be so rigid that we don't allow ourselves any variance to be able to continue to conduct business, even as a committee, because I think everybody here is committed, but there are some people who just can't get here sometimes. But the other part of it is, and I get what you say, Commissioner, but I think the other thing we got to look at is with this document, going back to what you were talking about earlier, this is 1923. It's old. And for lawyers, I will say this much, and Ms. West, I know you agree with me. We've transitioned from the old English common law and that language to natural language. That's what they call it. Because some of the forwiths and therefores and some of the stuff that's in there, it's like reading some of the words in the Bible and having to go to the concordance to get the real answer to what it is. And you know, just like the word elector, when you start talking about qualifications, nobody said that. You just said people who vote. And so, but I think that when you're trying to shape a 1923 document 101 years later, you gotta come up to speed with what we're saying, and you just say what you say. And so, but we have to be conscious that this document that we're putting together now is gonna be read 100 years from now.
That's right.
And it has to, and when we do it, we gotta make sure that we are not so rigid that it's gonna take a majority, it's gonna take a super majority to come in and change some basic things that may not need to be there. So when we talk about things like compelling attendance virtually versus not, I personally believe that those are ordinance issues. So that, because it only takes a majority of the commission to change an ordinance, as opposed to putting it in the charter saying that, you know, virtual attendance is not in place. And that's something that I would love to hear other comments on, because when you put it in here, when you put it in the charter, it stays till there's another vote. And if you look at what's going on in Palatka, when was the last charter review?
1923.
It's been a long time since there's been a charter review. And so so when you look at those things, you know, we're talking referendums every time you're doing this. And we have to make sure that the stuff that we want to be a part of a referendum, that it has teeth. So when we start maybe talking about residency and how do we determine what those things are, those are places. Or when we start talking about other things, because you got committees now that you got communities that say, hey, a city commissioner is gonna make $100 a month, and it's it's in the charter, not by ordinance. And those people are making $100 a month in today's time, and they can't find people to run because of what they got in place, because by referendum, the citizens aren't gonna vote for it. And so we have to make sure that we are conscious of what's there. And so what's the thoughts of the committee on that?
Mr.
I know I said a
Chair, I
lot.
have a question though. Why can't the charter be reviewed more? Why do you have to wait 100 years? Why can't you review it maybe every decade?
And we talked about having the charter review regularly. And the suggested time was, I think, 7 years,
10 years as well.
10,
right?
yeah.
10 is what you suggested.
Same
Okay.
as
Right, 10 years is what's saying.
I'll go around the board. Let me go on this side and I'll come back to this side.
Chair, my question is, so we can organize or be able to put that language in an ordinance to the commission in an ordinance form compared to this, is what you're referring? Or we're saying that if it's here, I know it's here forever until da, 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 da. But if we put it here, the commission can do an ordinance that can tweak it to. What are you saying that, that's what
What I was saying was that the committee has the ability to do it through the charter, or the committee also, as a part of the recommendation, can say, we suggest that the commission adopt an ordinance doing A, B, and C, and council may draft that language.
That's what okay.
I'll go around the board, just make sure.
Well, I agree with, Mr. Hill. I don't see any reason why the city couldn't do an ordinance, and he just explained it. I would point out that while this charter, it's 121 years old. It's updated continually. I forgot when the last time it was updated, either the city attorney or the city clerk can say the last time. It's updated by ordinance on a continual basis. So this isn't the original, exactly the original 1923 ordinance. It's updated completely. I see one up, just glance up here, not 2006. There's ordinances all the time, including this year, that update the charter. So don't just think about this, the whole thing is outdated, because ordinances have updated pieces of it. Not all of it, pieces of it. I just want y'all to remember that.
Go around.
One of the things that, like a light bulb, when you were saying it, the difference between ordinance and the charter. Like, can't we go through the list and almost be like, all right, that goes in the ordinance pile, this goes in our pile? To like streamline it so that we're not spending time, we can always come back to the ordinances and discuss them, but this way we were staying focused on what we need to focus on, which is the charter review.
We can, but and it has to be, a consensus.
Oh, yeah.
Or at least we do that, yes.
So like a bucket.
Again, I'd like to suggest something practical. So we have the Florida League of Cities, we have other cities. Is it practical for us to have maybe a best practice or model? And we start with a model and make it for city of Palatka. And that's really it. That's all. That's what I got.
We did do that.
Council, go ahead.
At your initial meeting, we do
said
have the National Civic
right.
League's model charter.
Oh, that's
It's
what I
in
wanted
your
to
packet of information,
That's
so
what I wanted
that
to
has been done.
Thank you. No, we have it. Thank you.
And also along those same lines, Indiantown is the newest city in the
Yeah,
state of
so-
Florida, so that's also, that's the newest town here, so they got the newest charter.
The whole reason I brought it up, I brought this particular issue around Zoom, because I feel like it's being abused. And one of the things that, if you put it in an ordinance, just like the city commission will have to vote on the ordinance, they can come back a month later and change the ordinance as well. But here, if you put it in the charter, and I don't care if, I don't care if we put under, that,
State of
certain, state of emergency and that kind of thing in it as well. It doesn't matter to me, but I want it to be addressed to where it would take a supermajority to change it so that they would do what the citizens of Palatka is expecting them to do, be present whenever they bring their concerns, because somebody said earlier, people tend to be less engaged when they're on Zoom. I'm not saying all, I'm not saying all, some people are less engaged when they're in Zoom, on Zoom. And when you got, and as has been stated earlier, you got kids running around, you out outside the pool, and this, that, and that kind of thing. Your focus is not where it needs to be most of the time.
And so after healthy discussion, and I think this has been good discussion here, is there a motion?
I move that we insert into the charter, let's see, around Zoom, provisions for Zoom during state of emergency that has been declared by the governor. To where we're in, because we are anticipating more viruses and to come. And we want to address this, but I think if we exert that, some language around that into the charter, that would help address the abuse that's currently happening. I won't say happening, has happened in the past.
So,
I'll second his motion.
let me help you
I
out.
don't know whether that's a motion or not.
Let me help you out with the interpretation. So is that a motion to compel attendance of commissioners at meetings with the exception of state of emergencies?
Yes,
Wow. What is there in the heart of that?
Physical presence of
That's not the
commissioners.
same
at meetings.
thing.
whenever, and I think, here as the stated, if you're in the hospital in this day and age, the commission can excuse you for that particular meeting.
So
Yeah,
you're,
but then they might need your.
I'll second for the sake of discussion.
for the sake of discussion, there's a second on the floor. Is there any discussion at this time? I'll go to Ms. Swetlick first. I'll come back to you, Ms. Davis.
Yeah, but what if the city commission needs one more vote? Then you can vote from your hospital bed while you're on Zoom. But if you are not allowed to attend that meeting via Zoom, then.
Remember she's actually talking to me, so I'll.
Oh, no, you're fine, you're fine.
Remember, the state of emergency already states that it has to be a quorum present. Anyway,
Does
So,
that still exist or was that rescinded with?
all of it was rescinded. I thought all of it was rescinded during the state of emergency, but they say the city has an ordinance that's in place that continue to allow them to attend by Zoom.
Council stated AG's opinion.
So during a state of emergency, there was an attorney general opinion that allowed participation by Zoom. That has since been rescinded. You do need to be physically present in order to constitute a quorum. After quorum is established, and I believe you already reiterated this, you can have several commissioners leave, and as long as you still have that majority vote, you can proceed with passing ordinances and resolutions. We cannot supersede state law.
State law.
That's right.
Ms. Davis.
As we're considering this motion, I'd like for us to think of two things. Number one, as the chair mentioned, imagine someone looking at this 10 years from now or 15 years from now. And number two, consider the fact that like the difference between a policy and a procedure, charter is like a policy, and then separately you have procedures, and typically a policy document and a charter document does not attempt to manage behavior.
I agree with part of what Ms. Davis said. The other part is 10 years from now, I think the citizens are still going to want to have their commissioners present for a vote in person. So that unless the US Constitution has been suspended, which it might be, who knows? But it does say you have the right to address your grievance to government in person, First Amendment. The other thing is that, yes, you can put it as a policy, but as Mr. Norwood said, policies can be changed. The people that are abusing the Zoom option are not going to vote to not be able to allow to abuse it anymore. If you're in the hospital, then you're not able to look at your city agenda and participate in the meeting in the first place, or you wouldn't be in the hospital. I was in the hospital twice.
I don't know
The
about
whole
that.
time I missed 9 years. In 9 years, I missed 2 meetings. I was in the hospital. I was not able to participate in the meeting by Zoom, phone, or anything else, because I was basically at death's door. So I think the thing in person is a good thing. I think you have to realize that the citizens want the commissioners to be there in person. We've heard, I'm sure Mr. Norwood's heard from what he's saying, the exact same thing I'm hearing. The citizens are sick of the commissioners not being in person or walking out of meetings to go to another important meeting in the middle of a commission meeting. Yes, that happened, and it's on tape. I'll tell you later. So, I mean, the citizens, and if you don't have it in the charter, then every commission, as Mr. Norwood stated, they'll change it. So you know.
You know, let me go around. I got you. I'm holding your spot. Mr. Schuler.
On the same vein of what Mr. Norwood has motion is intent, just an effort to kind of speed this along, I'd like to make a suggestion on how to reword what section 23 says. I've got some notes here. I'll just read it out from start to finish. If you like it, you can amend your motion should you choose. Otherwise, if we want to discuss more, we can. My suggested rewrite would be the physical attendance of a majority of the members of all members elected to the city commission shall constitute a quorum. but a less number may adjourn from time to time to compel the attendance of absent members in such manner and under such penalties as may be prescribed or prescribed by ordinance. Members elected to the city commission may attend virtually if a majority is physically in attendance, notwithstanding a state of emergency having been declared by the governor of the state of Florida. An affirmative vote of 3 commissioners shall then be necessary to adopt any ordinance or resolution, and the passage of all ordinances and resolutions shall be taken by an affirmative response or a negative response and entered unto the journal. Feel like that appropriately addresses all the concerns everybody has raised about section 23. Any discussion on that? Sure. All right, I see you smiling over there. Yeah, I'm sure you probably have thoughts.
I think it's restrictive. I think it's restrictive. It goes directly to his sentiment, but I still think and it goes back, and I agree with what Ms. Davis said about manager behavior. I think when the culture is set, I still don't believe this is the proper place to create that. And I think at the end of the day, virtual appearances have become are convenient, but there have been some situations where being able to have all of the commission available on significant issues, even if they couldn't be there in person, has been critical for us to a business inside of the city, more so than having a person appearing on Zoom. I would dare to say at 75% of your meetings, everybody's there. And that would probably be my number, but I think that when we find, because lately all the commissioners have been at the meetings. And I think that when you coming out of COVID, everybody got hooked on Zoom for doing the way in which they do business. And I think we're seeing it lessen now in some ways as it relates to how the commission is doing business, because it was a matter of convenience, I think, where everybody was there and they were until you got zoomed out. And so I think that's been the place. I definitely, the language is fine. I just think that it's better suited for an ordinance. It's not that I'm not okay with it, but I think that's kind of where it is. The only thing I would say is that there are other situations where that may be deemed emergency outside of a state of emergency. It may be a situation where, like Mr. Dolan's saying, you got a 90-year-old mother where you can't leave and get away, but you can tune in and still be able to do what you're doing, but you need to stay close. Or what happens if you just can't make it because something happened on the road or your flight got canceled, or whatever the case may be. And you can go to a conference room and function, even though you're in DC. There's so many different things now that are happening compared to 1923 that you don't lock in the same way. Let me go to Ms. Wise and I'll come back around to you too. I haven't forgotten you. Yeah, I'll go Ms. Wise, I'll come back to you.
For the chair, I agree with the sentiments, and I do understand that the behavior should not be dictated in this, but to Mr. Dolan's point, we are looking at the character of our commission. That comes with taking this office. I think we need to believe in their conduct as a commissioner, saying, yes, I want to perform this duty, and their commitment to the people. We don't know somebody else's circumstance. It can be dealt us. And to Mr. Dolan's point, I totally agree with you, because I once was in that position. And I beg to differ. I've read my packet and I went through all mine, and I was able to speak on whatever was going on because of my commitment for the office that I took. We have to be willing to be inclusive. We want people to run for these offices, but we're ready to put them in a box. And again, everybody's not going to abuse a situation. And it was situations that was abused. I think the conduct in a certain way needs to be reckoned with in that. I think we need to look to the better part of an individual than to look at that negative part. And I think we can deal with it in an ordinance situation or in another fashion instead of being as rigid as that. And when we look at other people's charters, they don't chop up people like this. They don't chop up the commission stating their attitudes. It's not like that in their language. And I don't know how we got to this point that we're so harsh. I do understand that there's things that we, I got it, and I get it. But yeah, a charter?
Mr. Dolan, I'll go to Ms. Swetlick and then I'll come back to Ms. Flanders.
Thank
I
you.
got to.
I like what Mr. Schuler had put out there. I know it's gotta be cleaned up a little bit, but maybe just, keeping Zoom out of it, making it virtual attendance. And then exceptions can be provided for certain situations, for emergency situations, something like that where we don't need to lock it down to the period at this point. Let's just be general and so we can move on.
Ms. Butler.
Yeah, I wonder if citizens have ever complained about city commissioners not being in attendance, but, oh yeah, they have been complaining. Also, is there a tendency of certain people to do it more than others, and has that been discussed with the people that are doing this? And then my third thing is that nationwide, they're going to crack down, or at least this new government that's forming is going to crack down on all these Zoom meetings and want people back in the offices again, I read, instead of working still at home. That's also still from the COVID period. So there is a tendency to get more people back in the offices. It's just on the side.
Okay, so, we've had a lot of talking and, but Ms. West read the Florida statute and basically said we can't supersede the Florida statute. So I don't really understand why we're continuing to have all this conversation, trying to supersede the statute. Am I?
Well, and Ms. West, the statute just says you gotta have a majority present
Right,
in order to conduct business.
I think it says it in person.
But it doesn't say what the other two people can be able to do.
Yeah,
No, give me a second. We'll go from you. I got Ms. Kitchen, then I'll come back to you. Hold that thought.
I like what everybody said, parts of what everybody said. And I like the part that it does say you have to have a quorum in person. That means 3 people have to be in person regardless. And I do think that there could be exceptions made, like Mr. Dolan was, if you're out in New York City and you've got your 95-year-old mother and you read the agenda and you studied and you want to appear by Zoom, great. No problem with that. The other thing I would say is, you can't regulate behavior. My, we need to get rid of Robert's Rules of Order, don't we? Because behavior is regulated by the state law, the Florida law, the 10 Commandments. We do regulate behavior. We say you can't rob, you can't rape, you can't murder. Robert's Rules of Orders goes by that's regulating behavior. So it's not saying that you can't have a Coca-Cola in the afternoon, but there are certain guidelines and rules that in essence do regulate behavior. And I just wanted to get that on the record. I mean, seriously.
What I'm gonna say is this, right? I don't have a whole bunch of time to waste, so, and I'm probably the biggest cynic in here, but for the sake of time, let's just try to keep it easy for what we're doing, because, I mean, we get your point. But just slow down on being cynical today, because this probably ain't a good day to be cynical. This is a good day for us to be practical. And we get it, and I think that it's interesting, there are varying views on this, and we beat it to death for an hour. And I think what Mr. Schuler put in place was crafted in a very strong manner. And so we've got that in place. Are there any other comments at this time as it relates to what's out there? And the first question I've got for you, Mr. Norwood, is, are you okay with the language that Mr. Schuler suggested for your amendment?
Like me read it again.
Yes.
After the
Thank
chair.
you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
So The physical attendance of a majority of all members elected to the city commission shall constitute a quorum, but a less number may adjourn from time to time to compel the attendance of absent members in such a manner and, or in such manner and under such penalties as may be prescribed by ordinance. Members elected to the city commission may attend virtually if a majority is physically in attendance, notwithstanding a state of emergency having been declared by the governor of the state of Florida. The affirmative vote of 3 commissioners shall be necessary to adopt any ordinance or resolution, and the passage of all ordinances and resolutions shall be taken by an affirmative response or a negative response and entered on the journal.
I will amend my motion.
And it's, it's
I'll
Freddie, and he made the second, so I would, it's Freddie to the second.
amend my second.
So we have the new motion on the floor. Any discussion on this new motion?
What's the line about the governor? Can you repeat that?
Saying notwithstanding if a state of emergency has been declared by the governor.
So regardless whether it's declared or not?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so if
Or higher governing body, would that be better? Because it may be national.
Because that's basically current and what we're currently doing.
Okay, so we've got the motion on the floor, discussion on what we've just heard from there. Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay,
Nay.
nay. How many opposed?
This is for the amendment.
This is for the amendment. Can you, and can you give the language to Ms. Krantz, so we make sure we have that in place?
I've got it written down, which I
Written
can
down.
send it to you later.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that passes by way of the majority on this. The other question is, will we, with that, are we okay with council looking at that language and making sure that it complies with that? Make any suggestions as it relates to current law and making sure that we're.
Yes, and just so everyone has a level of assurance here, it's not just me that will be looking at your recommendations to the city commission. Charles Overturf will also be reviewing it with counsel from the supervisor of elections to make sure that it complies with state law before it ever goes to the city commission and ends up on a ballot. It's not just me.
And so one of the things that we would do, once we've gone through all these sections, one meeting at a time, we're gonna come back and we'll take the final draft and go through that to make sure that the sentiments are where they need to be and everyone get an opportunity to review it before that final meeting.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion.
Yes.
And we don't know if it's appropriate. I move that the committee uses the model provided in our initial packets by the city attorney, the model charter, as a basis for updating the city of Palatka's charter and modifying according to the suggestions of this committee.
The motion on the floor. And so for clarity, do you want?
Yeah, that's,
So if I'm understanding you correctly, and you're saying that instead of us going through in the manner that we've been going through, you want us to basically take our current charter and transform it into what's in the model and then bring it back as the starting point for conversation.
That is what I'm suggesting.
Okay, so there's a motion on the floor. I'll get to you. There's a motion on the floor. Understanding what the motion is now, is there a second?
I second it.
There's a motion on the floor and a second. Now we're in discussion. Go ahead and I'll come back to you, Ms.
Since I
Kitchen.
made the motion. So where I'm going with this is, I feel like we are coming across this, and let's address that. But we don't know what we're not addressing. We're picking and parting. We found from the last meeting, which was my objection, when, Mr. Norwood was trying to link something to something further back, right? And I was saying, well, can we work here or there? There are pieces that we're addressing. It may have some relevant information later. And I just feel like we are doing pieces and parts instead of looking at a model that has been presented In other words, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. So we don't know what we're missing, we don't know what's later, and we may come back and revisit some of the same discussion as Mr. Chair saying. One meeting, one section. So that's my rationale for my motion.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
I'll come to you. You got a question on what the motion is? Or is
No,
it a
Well,
discussion?
yeah, I have, yeah.
Let me get to Ms. Kitchens and I'll come right back to you.
The city commission gave us the directive to go through the city charter, our city charter. And see if it needed to be updated, getting with the city attorney who had recommendations on updating it. Based on rewording some of the language, which is a bit archaic. But our directive was to go through this charter. And see what needed to be updated, if anything. And also based on the city attorney's advice on wording certain legal archaic words. We were not given the directive to get a model charter and do it all over again. We were told to start on this one and go through it section by section. And we have till what, the end of 2026 or something? I forgot now when the deadline is. But some sections have gone faster, some sections have gone slower, depending on the debates and the individual taste of the people looking at it, including me. So I think we're doing exactly what we were commissioned to do by the city commission. The thing that Ms. West gave us is just a model for us to kind of use as a guideline, but not to start with that and throw this charter out. We weren't told to do that. We were told to go through this charter and find out if there's something needs to be changed.
Ms. Whitler.
Yeah, I just have a question about this model. Is that based on like a city of Palatka, or is it based
It's-
on a bigger city, a smaller?
I'll go ahead and let I'll go ahead and let Ms. West do it, but it's a national law.
Correct. It's the National Civic League, which basically gathers information about city charters from all over the country. Has recommendations and puts it into a model ordinance. There's commentary there. You do have access to it. If you don't have it anymore, I'm happy to share it.
I just downloaded it. It's 85 pages, or I would print it for you guys, but since 85 times all of y'all would be a lot. Can I ping you guys the link to the model city charter?
Yes.
Even if you guys choose to not use it, you'll at least have it for reference.
So the National League of Cities, the Florida League of Cities, all these different organizations, there are models out there that say these are the general tenets that you have as it relates to a city with your form of government that do these things. And it says, here's where you are. So a lot of communities will go to those models. And when they're trying to address a certain issue, they'll use that model as the basis for the base for the language.
So there are more models than one.
Most of the models are similar. So, and that's the thing about the models are pretty generic in the way that they are.
So they put this all on the computer, this
Yeah.
information, and then it spits out.
But and if I know Ms. Cranch, like I think I do, she's already emailed it to you. So, that's just where we are, and you already had it. I mean, so you already had it, so, it's a working guide to where you are. And to Ms. Kitchen's comments, I don't think the model circumvents the charge from the commission, but the model does, it gives you a way to convert this. You convert 1923 into 2014. And it's just I think it's another opportunity and another tool, the toolbox. It'll be, it was in a month, be 2025, so we'll be.
Yeah, we want to go back.
So that's there. So we've got to discuss, any other discussion as it relates to, let me go around the room, because I think this is important. And this could change the direction in which we're going. Ms. Wise.
Through the chair, again, the packet that Sonny initially gave us, that has helped me tremendously. It allowed me to go to the different charters in Green Code, St. Augustine, and wherever else I decided to peruse. I see that as a great idea. And I think it's not solidifying us in doing our job and our charter that our charge was given to us by the commission. It enhances us to do a better job. And I think it cuts to the chase on some things to have a discussion that's more pointed here, so we're not laboring things to the point that we're laboring things. And I get, we have to go through it, I see it as a great tool and I think it's a good idea. That's my opinion.
Sure. Come around to you. Go ahead, go and ask your question first, and then we'll get back. to
So you were wanting to use it as a tool, because my understanding is she's wanting to, Annie, Ms. Davis is wanting to just ignore the current and
No,
go
tool.
to
Me too.
view tool,
Let her-
okay.
let her finish first.
I'm just trying to get clarification as to what we're talking about. Because my understanding is Ms. Davis wants to go through the example and use the example as what we're working on. But you're wanting to continue, but, Ms. Wise is wanting to continue to use the current charter and use the example as a tool.
Me, yeah. that's right.
All right,
That's
Make
just
it
my opinion.
that's fine. No, I just want to make sure we're all on the same page, or I'm on the same page.
And I think what Ms. Davis is saying is use the model and insert the nuances of Palatka into the model.
Okay,
And thank you, Mr. Chair. You know,
Mr.
I think
Schuler.
it's semantics.
No comment.
Absolutely.
Ms. Weather.
Well, I have to apologize. I don't really do my homework because I'm an alternate. And I also have to say, I find this incredibly complicated. And it has especially to do with the old-fashioned language, you know. And since I'm a foreigner also, it's a double handicap. You know, I have to check what certain words mean and all that. So I just want to clarify that I'm not the smartest marble here in the room.
No, we do, right.
you're fine. You're doing great. Goodness. I said,
You good?
yeah,
Ms. Kitchen,
No, I just said Annie was fine, you know, I said to her,
got anything else?
no, sir. We've already voted, so I'm good.
Jackson?
I have, voted. We haven't voted.
No, we're not voting. We're going around with comments
I thought you'd already
about the
voted.
motion. Anybody with comments about the
We
motion?
made a statement that we've already voted.
Yeah, I thought we
so she
had.
didn't have
No, we
comments.
haven't voted. So we're just going
Okay,
around,
we did the
we're going
motion,
around the
okay.
room. We're going around the room with comments about the motion, because I think it's critical that we get everybody's opinion in this
Thank you.
room on this.
Yeah, no worries.
So, any comments about the motion?
No, I agree with Annie. Things are confusing sometimes. Thank you, Annie. No, I like the motion. It's fine.
Ms. Jackson?
No.
Mr. Dolan?
I like the idea of using the model as a tool, but not reworking everything into the model. I think that's gonna take a lot more work, and we're already 3 months deep into this.
I'll go, Mr. Moore, I'll come back to you last.
Good.
Yeah.
Comments.
If it's any consolation, the National Civic League model is silent on virtual.
So, Ms. Davis.
I want to make sure we're not getting caught up in the letter of my motion versus the spirit of my motion. It really is, whether you say it's a tool, I'm not saying our output will be that document. I'm saying we need to start
Yeah,
with some standard for, committee members like Annie.
Right.
It is complicated, and I want to say, Annie, the benefit of this committee is we're a cross-section of everybody in this city. So you absolutely add value, because one thing that you can confirm, if it doesn't make sense to you, it probably does not make sense to the average person. And that is the value of this committee being a citizen committee. So please don't devalue yourself, but please don't get caught up in the semantics of the motion. If I need to clarify it, Mr. Chair, please let me know. It is a tool. I'm not saying our charter is gonna come out exactly like that. I just feel like we're grasping, depending on where, whatever we read takes us, versus working towards a complete goal. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, what's your comment? I saw you move. I know these people.
He's breathing.
So,
They gotta breathe.
so we've
Mm.
we've heard the motion, and so that everybody's clear for one last time,
Mhm.
restate it so that everybody gets it before we vote, because I don't want anybody to be confused.
I move, and help me if I because you have a motion. If you can restate it.
Motion to allow the committee to use the model provided in the initial packet as a basis for updating the city of Palaka's charter and modify according to suggestions of the committee. And then here's where, Mr. Hill began to kind of clarify the motion. And then bring it back as a starting point for suggestion rather than going through the charter as we've been going through it.
So you don't want that piece? That's not your
No,
piece?
I think it depends, no, that's not my piece. My motion is just my motion, and I wanna give leeway to the committee to see how they wanna best use it. I don't
So-
wanna,
So your motion is just to use the model as a
As a
tool,
basis.
as a basis, as a
Yeah.
basis and a tool for us.
correct. That,
So there's a motion on the floor. Who had the second?
The second was, Ms. Johnson.
Ms. Jackson, that's still good for you? So we have a motion and seconds on here. We've had discussion. Is there any further discussion based upon what we just heard? Yes, ma'am.
I would just say that we're already free to use the model, so why do we need it in the form of a motion? The model's in our packet, the model's been emailed to us. All those of us that want to use it, a lot of us have been using it. I just don't see a need for a motion, but so be it. If there is one, that's fine.
Any other comments? Seeing none, I'll call a question at this time. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay,
Motion carries with 1 nay. So we have that as a model. What I want to do is we got a little time left. I think if we go through one more, it'll take us 2 more hours and then we can get out of here. So this one should be easy. This should be easy. Let's go to section 24.
Okay.
Section 24. It says, saying newly elected, time designated for assuming office, regular meetings. At
7:30 on the first motion.
Second Monday.
All right, so at 7:30 PM on the first Monday in January, next after each annual municipal election, the city commission shall meet at the usual place for holding meetings of the legislative body of the city, at which time newly elected commissioners shall assume the duties of office. This meeting may be held at an alternate meeting place as prescribed by ordinance. If the first Monday in January falls on New Year's Day, this meeting shall be held on the second Monday in January. Thereafter, the city commission shall meet at such time as shall be prescribed by ordinance or resolution, except that it shall meet regularly not more than once each week.
that sounds fine.
It sounds fine, but it is absolutely horrible, and I'll be the one to open this discussion.
no, it's.
And so here's the deal. Does anybody know what just happened yesterday?
Yes. The county elected officials were sworn in at 9 AM
Yeah.
on what day was yesterday? Tuesday, after the election.
And the school boards have been
Yeah.
sworn in.
The whole
Yeah.
county
Right.
elected.
Crescent City was sworn in the week prior.
Yeah.
So
Because the tax collector doesn't get until January.
Well,
Right.
that's.
they're constitutional officers.
That's right, they're constitutional.
So-
You're right.
So the reason that I wanted to have this conversation is, and having lived with, first of all, 7:30 is late. That's the first, but that's the first thing. 7:30 on a Monday is really late, and so it precludes you from being able to do this. Because here's the deal, we're not having a true meeting, it's just a swearing in ceremony at that point. And you're having it on Monday at 7:30 PM. And it is by charter, so it has to happen, and you should see the faces of the commissioners there. And it is.
They're not being sworn in.
But it's at the beginning of the new year, it's at that point, and so it's not during a commission meeting, it's a special meeting, which is called just to swear individuals in at 7:30 in the
In
evening.
the dark.
And you have to do it you have to do it at that specific time, but it also, when you look at what's there, it also talks about it being at the place of your regular commission meeting. We did it at the college for the first one, we did it at we did it at the Laramie Arts Center before, and then I think Mayor Correa did hers at the Price Martin Center, I wanna say. It's very restrictive in how it's done, and it creates issues with compliance, quite honestly. Even when you wanna do it, because we know you can't hold with 12 people inside the commission room. And it doesn't give much room for any variance in what's in place. My other part is, you're talking about taking office in January after an election in November. And you're 2 months later from doing business, and there are a lot of things that can happen within that time period. I think that once the people speak, then we should be expeditious in having a transition and power. And that's just my opinion, and I think we can do this one pretty quickly, but I would love to hear everybody else's
Mr.
thoughts.
Chairman.
Yes, ma'am.
First of all, the city commission has been meeting in the daytime when people are at work, a lot of times, 3 o'clock, 2 o'clock, various meetings. 7:30, it seems maybe excessive, maybe some family members can't be there for some unknown reason, but by 7:30, most everybody's off of work. You're not in school, you're not at work, you can be there. And in the dark, most people can drive in the dark. I can no longer drive in the dark, so that is an issue. But most people can drive in the dark, so being there at dark on 7:30 is no problem. It being in January, the reason for that is, and I think another commissioner mentioned it at some point, I don't remember if it was Mr. Norwood, a previous commissioner or a current commissioner. There are things that the commission is working on that will be finished by January the 1st. If you bring in the new commissioner, then the plans and stuff that the current commission is working on and needs to get finished, which the new commissioners can't change, but then that gives the old commission, no offense, the old commissioners time to finish everything that's already in the works, then you start over new in January. And it does say that it either at City Hall or an alternate meeting place as is prescribed by ordinance. And yes, people have met at various other places. I think that covers everything. So what's wrong with 7:30 at night? People are off of work, kids are out of school. And January is only 2 months after November. So that gives the commissioners time to clean up everything they need to clean up and get out of office. I don't see any problem with it.
Mr. Chair, why can't it be on a Sunday afternoon or a Saturday afternoon?
My point.
What are the current terms of
Why not?
election? Like, when somebody gets elected to commissioner, what is the term?
So that's 4 years.
But is it January?
The term starts in January.
Yeah.
Your term
So-
starts
as a-
there, yeah.
So
Huh?
January?
Term starts when you're sworn in.
It starts when you sworn in, but it starts after the election. So you can literally, if we change this, they can start working in November, December. And so that's where we are. Go ahead.
So there's no set date for a turnover of candidates.
Only because of this,
Yeah, as of right now.
only because of the
And
chart,
this is it.
right?
Yeah, we can change that. I mean, I think the 7:30 thing is silly.
I agree, the 7:30 is ridiculous, because if you do have children, they need to be in bed, they need to be fed and in bed and all the things. So, school age children, but that's not even the whole point. Shit, now I forgot where I was going.
Can you make that out? Hey, since we'll go to somebody else. Anybody else?
Oh, my goodness.
I think we leave it at that. But I also think that based on, one of the things you have is this, right? If a person's voted out, and I've had the luxury of having been that person, right? You don't really want me to finish what I started. You want to transition to somebody else to do it, right? Because I can tell you, I sat there and watched the commission put in a residential requirement. And I know it was because of me. And it was, at the end of the day, let's go ahead and make the transition at that point, because now that person gets an opportunity to get to work faster. And I just don't, I think the longer because what happens is, and luckily this city has had people who, as you transition, who've still been serious about their commitment. But you go to me out of office and you still need to come to work for 2 months. Like, there are some people who are gonna be vindictive during that period. Not everybody, but there are some people that will have an opportunity to be vindictive.
Yeah, I just don't believe we need lame ducks commissioners. Number one, we can't afford it. As well, so I'm in total agreement that we change this.
To what?
Well, she just remembered, she just had her moment.
Did you remember? Okay.
Keep it clean.
Yes, I will. But also to the projects, you're always gonna have projects that are going on. Never are you gonna be done at the end of December with all of the business. I mean, there's so I feel like that's just an odd claim an odd point to say you're gonna be done with something at the end of December to start new in January. We're not.
But Mr. Chair, is the old commissioner working with the new commissioner?
I will say that 2 month period is a period where it's like you're looking in the window of the store and you're waiting on your check to come for you to get some money to go buy something. Because the communication is limited because the voice is not a training period. It's not an introductory period. There's not a whole bunch going on. Right now, you're sitting and waiting.
Cleaned up.
Go ahead.
So from perspective of a newly elected commissioner waiting. One thing I believe, and please for city officials, correct me if I'm wrong, the budget has been approved for next year. It has already occurred. To Ms. Flanders' point, projects are ongoing. It is also a holiday season after election for the rest of the year, 2 major holiday seasons. And thirdly, something more practical, there is a training that would benefit me more than the outgoing commissioner. But technically, she still has authority to go. Even though on January 1st, she can use none of what she will learn in an official capacity, right?
So
Just-
FLC legislative session. So in December with the Florida League of Cities, you are being made aware, you're going through a legislative session that teaches you about everything that's gonna happen in the upcoming legislative year.
Yeah, so
Okay, yeah,
I'm
yeah.
just giving that as an example, and
Right,
that's just
right.
the stuff I know right now. The other thing is this. I am appropriately meeting with city officials that I need to meet with, the city clerk, the city attorney, staff to get information. But again, I'm kind of doing it on my own. I'm really still anti-citizen.
Yeah.
I'm in no official capacity at this
Right.
point.
Commissioner elect.
Thank you.
So I just want to put that out there. Okay.
May I make a recommendation that this committee change that time frame to the first Tuesday after the election? At 4 o'clock in the afternoon,
After which election?
after that commissioner's been elected to the office.
The primary in August or the general in
No, it has to
November?
be the general, because
Okay.
the primary, unless they get a super majority.
Then they get sworn in August, so you need to.
But I would say the first Tuesday after the general election,
There you go.
at 4 p.m.
To the chair. Would you amend your motion because everything has to be certified?
It wasn't
That's
a motion
30.
yet. It wasn't a
There
motion.
wasn't a motion, it's just a
Oh, okay.
recommendation, that's all.
So,
As soon,
Okay.
so just to kind of, so what happens, so let's use, Commissioner Alexander
Yeah.
from the county as an example. He wins the primary.
Mhm.
So he didn't get sworn in until November.
right,
So,
general election.
so regardless of whether you're elected in the primary in August or you're elected in November, he still does not take office he doesn't take office until November.
I would say the second Tuesday. November, the second Tuesday after the election.
And can we not?
It gives it that time to be certified and all.
Yeah.
At 4 p.m.
Thursday before the regularly scheduled meeting, because we don't have a meeting on Tuesday.
I know you don't, that's why it's a swearing in meeting.
Oh.
Yeah.
We did yesterday.
It's just a swearing in meeting, it's not a regular meeting.
Could it be in the county swearing in process?
No.
No, you gotta have your own,
Okay.
the only issue would be getting, I guess, if that was an issue, getting a judge.
So the attorney doesn't have to be there for this swearing
Who?
in? The attorney? No.
The clerk is usually there.
I gotta take minutes, somebody.
Right.
So, that working on that day.
And my only issue with what you're suggesting is that you're given a specific day as to when it takes place. I think if you give a date as to when the person takes office, which would be, if you say the first meeting in November. Because we meet on the second and fourth Thursdays of every month, or whatever you say in that language, that allows for an opportunity. They just have to be sworn in before that time
Right,
to be able to serve at that meeting. They can get sworn in at an hour before the meeting.
and then the meeting, and then they will be sitting there.
Don't have a meeting time is a different.
But I was just thinking that we probably do the swearing, like currently, we do swearing, with.
Because really what's happening right now is you're getting sworn in on a Monday and your meeting is the following Thursday.
Right,
3 days later.
right, that way,
In some cases.
because a lot of times in swearing in, especially first time commissioner. They like have families there, they have all these individuals there inviting and that kind of thing. These individuals don't want to sit through another whole commission meeting. They just want to come into a swearing in service and then meet with that individual and give them all the congratulations and that kind of thing out.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I think if you do it as close as you said, depending on when the general election is, the supervisor of election needs what, a week, Mr. Norwood, to certify the election, or has to go through everything and certify, it takes about a week or
Give them
two.
a couple of
There's
weeks.
only one meeting in November, one meeting in December. So basically that's moot. There's only two commission meetings that the new commissioner will attend. But the second meeting in November could very well fall within the timeline that the election has not been certified. If the election's on the 6th through the 7th, and then the second meeting is on the 12th. So I'm concerned about that part only.
The city commission never has a second meeting in November because of the
Exactly.
on Thanksgiving.
Exactly. The first meeting would fall within the perimeter of maybe the person not being certified to be able to be sworn in. So
And one of the things the supervisor of election is gonna be able to do it as well, is tell us whether or not it's gonna be within that time frame for them to be election certified also.
we need to get a time frame from him.
I don't believe the election results were certified by our first meeting in November
No, they
because
weren't.
Mr. Overturf wouldn't. No, they weren't.
It's in the paper today.
Yeah, he wouldn't let me put it in my pocket for the
So-
November 14th meeting. So, Ms. Davis's election results won't be read into the record of the city commission until the city commission's December meeting.
But that still lets the new commissioner be at the one December meeting, and so.
When were the counties going, someone in?
It just was.
This happened yesterday morning, I think.
That's where Commissioner Alexander.
So basically 3 weeks.
Was Palatka sworn in as well?
Yeah.
Everybody wants
It
to
was.
help for the
So
constitutional.
basically it was 3 weeks later.
Were the results certified?
Yeah, they were certified.
By now.
Yeah.
Would
Yes,
you,
sir.
would you consider changing that to the first meeting or the couple days before the first meeting in December? So this way then it's only 3-4 weeks after the election. Everything
That'd
should be
work.
certified.
Would you guys be open to, council bringing back the language from the county so that we can have that? And I think it'll be an easier model for us, and then we vote on it at the next meeting,
I'm good with that.
just for the sake of time.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Because what the county and the school board does works. We know it works.
Yeah.
Motion to table until next meeting.
Second,
Come back with the county information.
if that's a motion, I'll second it.
Is that a motion?
I'll
And
second
then a
it.
second by Ms. Kitchens. Motion by Mr. Dolan. Any discussion on the motion?
Call the question.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Time is 5:37.
You did good. You did good. What you do.
One more than last meeting, we're making progress. Filling vacancy, section 25. We'll get you out in time for Bible. We're gonna get you out in time for Bible study today. Maybe late, but you'll get out. As long as they go 2 hours. Any vacancy in the city commission shall be filled by a special election held for the purpose, except the vacancies occurring within 4 months from the end of a term may be filled by a majority vote of the remaining members of the city commission until the next regular election. Provided, however, the vacancies resulting from recall elections shall be filled in a manner prescribed by the general law of the state of Florida. On the effective date of this provision, a vacancy shall exist as to any sitting commissioner appointed to serve out the unexpired portion of the vacated commission seat. Counselor, any comments first?
No, I'm sorry, I was reading at the same time.
Oh,
Yeah,
interpretive or. Looks straightforward.
it's pretty straightforward.
Very simple.
No, it is straightforward. What, I'm sorry, what do you want me to? interpret?
No, I just want to see if you had any additional thoughts on this.
No? That's you.
Any questions, comments, concerns?
Make a motion.
Yes, sir.
Make a motion to accept section 25 as written.
Second.
There's a motion on the floor. There's a second. Is there any further discussion?
Just a question. So basically, this means that the commission appoints the last 4 months of an empty seat.
You're right,
The alternative is the government does it.
right, which is where I was, which is what I was gonna be wanting to come
That
to.
was my next question is,
Tell me you want me to say.
No, you got, listen, you read my mind, it comes up.
so other than having the governor appointed, this is what protects us by having us locally appointed.
Yeah, but, and under, right,
Got it, thank you.
So when does the governor, excuse me, when does the governor appoint?
There's a vacancy on any elected position within the state of Florida for a special district, local government. If you don't have protective language like this, the governor has the ability to appoint for the vacancy to fill out the rest of the term.
It happened like with Ganuda.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, that happened, what's her name?
What Janusa?
Yeah, with Janusa. Okay,
correct.
so that's a term limit then, right? I mean, now she had to again, be voted in.
Well, that's different. There was a vacancy, he appointed for the vacancy. That's,
Oh, okay, okay.
Is it appropriate to add in here, by a certain time that the, should be filled? I'm sorry, a vacancy should be filled, oh, I'm sorry, disregard, by a special election, I'm sorry, disregard. Different kind of board.
the only reason I don't think you want the time restrictions is because.
Yep.
Because you don't know how long this
Yeah,
special election.
no,
is.
yeah, misread.
Yes, ma'am.
Through the chair, the council that will be in a situation like this, the criteria of the person that they're going to appoint would have to follow in,
It follows the previous section.
okay, that's what I'm
Yeah.
gonna make sure.
So
We don't need to say
So,
that.
no, your qualifications
I
are
might-
are already stated, so
Okay.
they can't appoint a person who's not qualified. Because there'll be a conflict with the charter.
And we don't need to refer back to, I'm just asking.
Right, you don't have to give reference to it,
Okay,
it's already
all right,
incorporated.
that's all. Okay, that was my question.
there's nothing
Yes.
wrong with having multiple layers of protective
Yeah.
language, but that is solely within your discretion.
Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
could we have a reference with such? Just to refer to the qualifications of? Or is it just something that's felt?
It's understood, it's
Redundant.
All I'm saying is just a reference to, that's all I'm saying. Not,
To section 23?
yeah, that's what I'm saying, reference to the criteria.
I just, oh, if nobody else. The only concern about adding a reference there, that if it's not referenced somewhere else, when all of this applies to everything, you're almost excluding things by adding it in one. I just think it's confusion to add it. That's just my opinion.
I think it needs to be referenced.
I mean,
I'm just making.
I understand, I'll just say this. It's already stated that you can't be on the commission unless you are qualified, and then we define qualified. And we defined that in a prior section. And so it's almost an overstatement, it's really a restatement to say it again here. You can say that, any vacancy in the city commission shall be filled by a special election for and all that stuff. Any individual filling those positions shall be qualified as defined in the
Yes.
city.
But that's the
charter.
paragraph that we just read.
This language.
It's redundant.
It's overkill, but it's,
It's
I mean, for me, I don't typically draft stuff like that, but it's within our right to do so. So I won't say it's not something we can't do, but it's overkill.
Second.
So there's a motion on the floor. Any further discussion on the motion?
Budget planners, get back before we call a question.
We can.
I just explain, I feel like it's very, sorry, I'm chair. if I may.
No, you're fine.
I thought it was very concise, very clearly laid out. So I motion for it to be accepted as written.
Right, and council touched on the point that the governor, in most cases, when there is an excess term, where there's an excess of a few months left on the term, the governor typically makes the appointment unless you have something in place that does it.
We're trying to find the county's language while we have a minute.
Oh, for the other piece.
Yeah, we're having issues finding.
Not under swearing, it's not under oath of office.
Election.
What keyword?
We'll figure that out.
School district does the same thing too, right?
Mhm.
So Ms. Planners, we're getting ready to vote on the motion as it stands. Questions already called. All in favor of Mr. Stewart's motion,
Aye.
opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Yes, ma'am. Ms. West, you had something for us? Hey, we're on the road. We're at Peru.
Mr. Chairman, I have to leave. I have a 6 o'clock meeting across the street. I apologize to the committee. Excuse me, please.
Yes, ma'am. Section 27, let's keep rolling. 26. Oh, where we are, that comes right before 27.
Sometimes.
Actually, Chair, if I may, we'll be able to take a brief recess.
$5.
Put it on the tab.
We can take a 30-day recess.
How long are you planning on recessing? How long were you planning on going?
I was hoping we got out here by 6.
Yes, please.
We tried.
Yeah, we got 15 minutes. We can go.
Recess or
I
adjourn?
didn't see what the
No,
time
we
was.
should
I apologize.
adjourn. We cannot discuss anything.
I think we can get through, I'm hoping we can get through at least 20.
You can get to 26.
We get to 26 and 27, I think we'll be fine.
Okay.
And that, we should better get to those pretty quickly, I'm hoping. All right. Mayor's powers and authority. The mayor shall preside at all meetings of the commission and perform such duties as shall be consistent with his office. We're gonna make sure that's not gender specific. And he shall have the same power and authority as other commissioners and voice and vote in proceedings of the commission, but no veto power. He shall use the title of mayor in any case in which the execution of legal instruments or writings are necessary or other necessities arising under the provisions of this act or general laws of the state so required. But this shall not be construed as conferring upon him the administrative or judicial functions of mayor under the general laws of the state of Florida.
No strong mayor.
Right. So the position of mayor is defined as mayor commissioner, mayor/commissioner, it's not just mayor. So the mayor has the same duties as the same right, has the same power as any other commissioner. And that's it. There is no other there, that's it. And so in a nutshell, it's you've got 5 commissioners and 1 serves as mayor.
Can we change the language in he/she?
The gender language we're gonna change. That's gonna be done throughout the entire document.
Okay.
Any comments, questions, concerns? Yes, sir.
The vote veto power part, can we correct that so we eliminate the vote before veto? Because they're talking about a veto, right?
Right. So we can correct that to no veto power.
And I guess the last 2 sentences, basically, it's just a ceremonial position, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Actually, you just take the word vote out of there.
Yeah, that's what I was suggesting.
Well, the original language in the original charter of 1923 said vote. It was later determined to be a typo, and that's
Oh.
why you end up having both. It's just they're recognizing that's a typo.
So we will,
We will recognize that,
so
we
we,
recognize the title.
so we will,
It only took us 100 years.
so we would change the script there. Any,
The chair, it seems to me, separate other than gender part, I'm good with it.
everybody else good with this language?
You need to keep
Yeah, motion. I'd like
Sonny has-
to make a motion to accept it after correcting the scrivener's errors.
Okay. So there's a motion to accept and after correcting the scrivener's error from vote to veto
Mhm.
And the,
and the gender.
Gender, yeah.
And the gender language.
Mhm.
So there's a motion on the floor. There's a second from Mr. Norwood. Oh, a second by Ms. Wise, not Mr. Norwood. Is there, is there any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries unanimously. Section 27 is our last section for today unless there's unreadiness by anybody in here.
Did I need to show somebody about them?
Yes.
Okay.
She was.
That means locked.
Well, you said,
I don't.
I'll show them. Can I remove
Alright.
access to them? Once I show them?
Yeah, I will wait. Yeah.
Is it through here?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, sure. I will read this while you're doing that. Every officer of the city shall, before entering upon the duties of his office, take and subscribe to an oath of affirmation to be filled and kept in the office of the city clerk, which oath shall be in the form prescribed for state officers by state constitution. Pretty straightforward. I don't think
So
we,
moved.
Second.
motion on the floor in a second. I don't think Ms. Davis is gonna object. Any discussion on this? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried unanimously. We can get through this entire section. All right,
Just on that last one, there is a gender correction that needs to be done.
we got it. We got you.
We go next.
She's gonna do everything. Council's gonna do all the gender corrections.
Yeah, thank you.
Section 28, powers granted by this act and general state law in commission exercise of same. All powers granted by this act, laws of chapter 9875, 1923, and by the general laws applicable to said city, except as otherwise provided in this act by a constitution or vested in the city commission, and the city commission shall by orders or resolution, as may be proper for exercise of such powers prescribed, the manner in which such powers shall be exercised. It's just a bunch of legal jargon that's not in today's terms. Council, I don't even think we
I
really,
suggest deleting this because it adds nothing and it's superseded by, the municipal home rule, law.
I was about to say, I don't think we even can clean it up.
But it's
So-
a purpose, but you answered that in
It's
discussion.
just a bunch of legal jargon. So I'll entertain a motion to delete.
Motion.
So. Is there a motion on the floor? Is there a second, Mr. Schuler? There's a second by Mr. Schuler. Is there any further discussion on this motion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries unanimously. Tell Ms. Davis we're on Article 3 when she returns. We are almost at 6 o'clock. And we made progress through Article 2 with a couple of things pending. Are you guys open with stopping here and going to Article 3 as we come back? Motion to adjourn.
More, second.
And do we have, before we do that, let me just make sure that we got dates for next meeting? Can we set a date for our next meeting?
Your committee meeting.
Yeah, we need to get with her and set the date for the subcommittee, and then we'll be good. Ms. Grants, are you looking up?
What month are you guys looking at?
December. Or we do after Christmas.
It should be January. And the reason I say January, because I know everybody, you know, we know that people individually have plans and that kind of thing around holidays and whatnot.
Some of us aren't retired.
Huh?
Some of us aren't retired.
Some of us, December is our busiest time of the year.
So, January, everybody agree with January, just general,
January.
everybody cool with that?
I really
All right.
appreciate January.
What dates do you want to look at? You want to look at Thursdays, Tuesdays?
Can't do it on this, we can't do it on the second Monday, I mean, the first Monday in January, that's out.
It's swearing in day at 7:30.
Not next year.
Maybe. We got 27, next year it will be.
Um, So you could look at Monday, the 13th. You could look at Tuesday, the 14th.
Monday's in, okay?
Yeah,
it might be-
No, that's the 20th.
Following
20.
week, yeah.
Okay.
13.
Monday,
Go for 13.
Monday the 13th.
13th works great for me.
Michigan National Championship.
Oh. Until we hear differently, right?
4 o'clock.
4 to 6 on the 13th of January?
Until we hear differently, right?
We're gonna hear differently if we set this.
Okay, I'm good.
Everybody's good?
Yeah.
There we go.
4 to 6 on,
4 to 6
On the
on the,
14th.
on the 13th of January. And then
we need to put that in form of a motion, or is that just setting?
you can do that motion along with your motion to adjourn.
I'd like to amend my motion then to include that as our next date.
The second.
Second.
Got a second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries unanimously. Meeting is now adjourned. We're close, we don't want to talk to you.
I would like,
Stop the recording.
oh, yes.
Yes.
Hold on. I gotta switch. gears. And he's got my.
We can pass it to you, you don't have to run this far.
I did the Sunday shuffle, you know, everybody stopped that when you were here.
You know, something else is a workers' comp hazard.